they made Ico originally. That was the first game they made, and I really liked that game a lot. It's basically you're just this boy with horns, and the style of their games. They have three games: Shadow of the Colossus, Ico, and The Last Guardian, and all their games have a very similar visual look to them. They're kind of minimalistic in everything, so that the visuals are kind of somewhat visual minimalistic. The story is minimalistic. There's usually just nothing. It's just kind of environmental for the most part. Your character can make talk, but it'll usually just be like one word. So like for Ico, for example, you play this boy and you're kind of leading this girl around and trying to escape this place. So you have to hold her hand and drag her around and jump with her and kind of like get her out of this place. And you can kind of just make noise like hey, oh. So you kind of just make noises. There's no actual talking. It's all just gameplay focused. But I've always liked the look of their games. I like the way they feel. I like the vibe, the ambience. I really liked Ico. And I just never played Shadow of the Colossus, but I always wanted to because everyone always says it's such an amazing game. And then when the remake was announced, I was like, oh, I'll finally play this game. And then it came out, I bought it, and I never played it. So it's almost 20 years old at this point. I'm finally playing Shadow of the Colossus, and I finished it. And I gotta say, it really holds up. Obviously, I'm playing a remake, so the visuals got a little upgrade. It's a beautiful looking game. Even 5 years, that game came out 2018. So even 5 years after the remake, or 6 years after the remake, it still looks great. I couldn't believe how good it looked, even though it's minimalistic. And the story and the vibe is still there, and the gameplay is still there. I don't think it's like a top 10 for me. Maybe at the time, if I had played it when it first came out, I think for sure, because as I played it even now, I was so shocked at how ambitious and crazy the game is. Like I was like, how did this game come out on a PlayStation 2? Like how did they do this back then? Because it's still impressive even now. So if you don't know anything about it, basically, again, it starts off in a bit vague. It shows your character on a horse, and he's carrying this dead girl, and you ride this horse up to this area. You put her on this altar, and it seems to be the gist is you're going to try to resurrect her by defeating these colossi. And so the game is very simple. It's basically just like, it starts out, and this voice from above tells you where a Colossus is waiting for you. And then you use your sword, you raise your sword up in the air, and your sword will kind of shoot this light beam out in the direction that you have to travel to find this Colossus. And you have this big open area. It's a giant open world game. And the cool thing about it is that there's just nothing. There's no enemies. It's just you, your horse, and you get to ride around. And the only enemies in the entire game are the Colossus. So you're just free to explore and do whatever you want. There's nothing to do though. There's no side quests. There's no one to talk to. It's literally just you and the wilderness. And some really great music and some really cool camera work. Some really frustrating controls with the horse at times, but the horse looks awesome. And so you just set off in the direction that you're supposed to go. And at first, the first Colossus is pretty easy to meet. You just it'll say go, your sword will point north. And so you go north, and you'll see this Colossus kind of walking around, and it's huge. It's a giant creature. It's a Colossus. It's a giant thing. So it's way bigger than you. And the cool thing is that, so the kind of the gist of the game is every single Colossus, there's 16 of them. Each of them are kind of like a puzzle, but it's through combat and mechanics. So the first one, I think you have to stab the Colossus in the forehead, I believe. But he's a giant, tall creature. He's as tall as a building. And so you have to find a way to get on to his forehead. And so each Colossus has a different puzzle to solve of how are you going to get on them. Some of them are flying creatures. Some of them are sea serpents or sandworms or bulls, and so some of them are really fast, some of them are just way really high up, and so you're trying to think like, how am I going to get on top of that thing? And so you only have 2 items. You have a bow and arrow, and you have a sword, and you have your horse, and that's it. Nothing else. There's no upgrades. It's just very simple, and I like that. It's just you have everything at the start of the game. Nothing changes, and so yeah, you've got to use your environment and your weapons to find a way to either, like, for example, the first one, I can't remember what you have to do with the first one, but it's fairly straightforward and easy. Like, he has fur, and I think you have to strike his foot or something like that just to get him to like kneel down, and then you can jump on his leg and grab onto the fur, and you can climb up the fur, climb him all the way up to the top and stab him in the head. But the cool thing is, like, the creatures behave real. Like, when they feel you climbing on their body, they start to shake and they start to try to throw you off by jerking it around and stuff. And you have to hold down the R2 button to grab onto their fur. So they're flinging you around, and then you got to wait your time, but you have stamina, so you can't just grab on forever. If you get tired, your guy will get thrown off. And you finally get to the top, and you finally stab him in the forehead. It's really cool. But the thing I was really impressed by was that there's 16 Colossi, and there were so many moments, like wow moments, where it's like, wow, I can't believe I'm doing this in this game, or I can't even believe that this happened in 2005 originally. But there's some really great moments that are kind of like all-timers for me, where it's like, especially this flying creature, like you got to shoot. It's like a sort of like a flying worm type creature, but it has these big kind of, I guess they're kind of like helium sacs under it that keep it in the air. So you got to use your bow and arrow to shoot the sacs out and deflate them enough for the kind of this creature to fall down a bit. And then it has these wings, these like bone wings that kind of dig into the ground as it's kind of refilling its sacs. And while it's on the ground lower, and it's in a kind of a dusty, there's all these sand tornadoes going around and stuff. You got to hop on your horse, and you're galloping beside this huge creature, and then you got to jump off from your horse, jump and grab onto the wing, and then the creature kind of goes up in the air and then lifts its wing up, and now you're running on the wing, and then you jump from the wing to its body, and you're running through this like flying snake as it soars through the air, and it will dip down. You got to grab onto it while it flies down so you don't fly off of it. You got to find the area and stab it. It's really cool. And there's like underwater fights and all sorts of different things. They're very unique. They're all unique battles, and a lot of them were like, I was like really impressed by. Overall, it was still just a good game. I wasn't like, I didn't have the impact. I think it would have had a much larger impact on me if I played it when it first came out, but it's still great. I still recommend it if you happen to come across it somewhere. I don't know if it's on the PC anymore or ever was, but if you ever find it, I really recommend it. It's really cool. The remake has, the water looks incredible. There's so many good looking waterfalls in that game. Probably the best waterfalls I've ever seen. And it's a really old game too, but yeah, fantastic. Really had a great time with it. The next on my list to play. Hey, thanks for listening to this clip of my podcast. I publish new episodes on the last Friday of every month at 12:45 p.m. PST for all premium members of my Patreon. My name is Cooper Bebo. I'm an actor, writer, and producer of film, television, and video games. Head to patreon.com/CooperBebo. You can sign up for free, get access to my blog, or you can toss me a few dollars if you want to support me and get special bonuses like this very podcast, or you can subscribe to my YouTube. You'll continue to get free clips and a brand new video every single Wednesday. So whether you like to watch, listen, or read, I've got something for everyone. I've also got a video game called Billy Saves the World. Please check that out on Steam right now. I've got movie projects in the works. I update all of that stuff in Discord all of the time. Again, the basic channels are free to join. Just head to patreon.com/CooperBebo to get access. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next clip.